excited to be able to participate in the forum. My name is Latifa Faisal, and I'm running for re-election for County Supervisor. I'm just finishing up my first 4-year term, and looking forward to the next 4 years. I'm an Ames native and a longtime county employee. Before I ran for office, I worked in the county attorney's office doing victim services and probation after sentencing services. So that was what I used to do for the county. Just a little bit about myself before I ran for office. One of the reasons that I ran for office is because I'm passionate about accessibility to services and ensuring that all of the residents in Story County have access to the services and supports that they need to be successful, productive, and participate in our county and all of life. Is that a minute? I'm just trying to see.
You know what? So
Yeah.
we just kind of did, we need to have you all go down and give your 1 minute introduction.
Okay.
So we did that, and so let's start the next one.
Hello, my name is Mike Wolf. I'm running for Iowa Senate in District 26, which is Marshall County and most of the geography of Story County, absent the Ames area for the most part. I'm running for office because I felt like the current representation wasn't listening to Iowans, but rather to out-of-state sources to pass a certain agenda. And I had gotten tired of the one-sidedness and the lack of accountability to Iowa voters, and felt like if I was gonna be this angry about something, then I better do something about it. So here I am running. Thank you.
Hi, Penny Bosler. I am running for House, Iowa District 48, which is all of Boone County and portions of Story County, Slater, Sheldall, and Washington Township, predominantly Highway 30 south to Huxley, but not including Huxley. And I ran for, I just retired last August, and instead of relaxing, enjoying it, I am doing this 9-month job interview because I didn't feel represented. So many of the legislation that has been shoved through our legislature is not what I would have done were I in that seat. I said, somebody needs to do something, and then decided I was somebody. So here I am, and I don't believe, well, we'll get into more positions later, but I'm happy to see you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm excited to be here. My name is Brett Barker. I'm a candidate for House District 51, and I've been looking forward to this forum. I want to thank all the folks putting it on, with Art and Nami in particular. I think they're very important topics, things that have been on my heart ever since childhood, from my own family background, also growing up in the Boy Scouts doing projects for accessibility. I went to the University of Iowa, volunteered at the Children's Hospital, and I was actually first introduced to NAMI when I met my wife on campus. So that's how long my interactions with NAMI have been. From there, I became a pharmacist, came over here to Story County. I've served as a pharmacist here since then. Also served on the Iowa Board of Pharmacy, the Iowa Pharmacy Association. I've really worked on healthcare policy. And some of those things have really been about improving access to quality care, like telehealth, removing regulatory barriers, pharmacy and medical equipment services, Medicaid Advisory Council, which is a really important topic, which we'll talk about tonight. And then also at the city level, we've worked to include accessibility thoughts and processes in all of the projects that we've done. So if I'm elected, I'd love to continue to work on those and be an advocate for that.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming out tonight. I'm Cynthia Passion, and I'm running for the Iowa Senate, District 28. It's all of Hamilton, Humboldt, Hancock, Wright, Franklin, and part of northern Story County. And I ran because I watched the discussion at the State House about cuts to the AEAs and about the private school vouchers. And I know that each representative got something like 3,000 emails and calls saying, we don't want this. We like our AEAs. We like our public schools. We don't want this. And they did it anyway, so I'm running.
My name's Ryan Condon. I'm running against Brett Barker for House District 51. I have no political experience. I'm a veteran of the U.S. Army. I've worked for the state of Iowa in different capacities in DHHS, as child support, income maintenance worker, public defender investigator, and fraud investigator for unemployment. The reason I'm running is because of the last session, every ridiculous bill that came out of last session and the session before. And my wife had to sit there and listen to me complain, and she told me to shut up and do something about it. I decided to do something about it. I don't think this is what she meant, but.
Hello, thank you everybody for being here. My name is Margaret Liston and I'm running for the Iowa Senate District 24. Oh, sorry, can you hear me now? I have, part of Story County, which is same as Penny's, Sheldon, Slater, up to Highway 30. I have Boone County, Greene and Guthrie, Dallas Center, and Perry. So that's my district. I am running because, well, I'm on city council, I'm in my 5th term. And when my opponent went after the libraries, talking about upset with the insurance companies because they wouldn't cover armed teachers, it told me he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't understand local government, and that sparked a fire in me. So I decided to run, and I'm happy to be here.
Good evening, everyone. I'm State Representative Ross Wilbur, Elam. I am running for my 4th term in the Iowa House. I serve on the Judiciary, Appropriation, Veterans Affairs, and Justice Systems committees. I've helped introduce legislation that really emphasizes putting people over the politics that you see. Trying to increase wages, trying to increase opportunity, trying to address civil rights and attacks on civil rights, in my opinion. I am a former mayor of another city and served on the city council for 12 years. I used to work for Iowa State Extension and Outreach and was involved with, for the students here, a lot of the accessibility, and especially the internet accessibility policies and procedures that you see. I was on a committee with the university to help implement some of those. And when I worked for a school district as a diversity advisor, I also was involved with investigations of discrimination, harassment, and bullying. And so, really just looking forward to answering the questions tonight, and I'm going to stop this myself and put time. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you all for introducing yourselves, so I'll start again. What programs or services would you like to see implemented in Story County to assist people with MH and or DD?
Thank you. I was excited when I read this question because last year we worked on revitalizing our 5-year strategic plan, and during that many-month conversation about where did we want Story County to go, what do we want Story County to be doing for our residents and our visitors. Mental health, disability, accessibility, equity, they were woven into every single conversation that we had. One of the priorities in our strategic plan is to develop a disabilities advisory council. One of my fellow supervisors on the board brought that idea forward about a year ago or more. So we were really excited to get that into our strategic plan and make sure that it stays a priority. Focusing on an accessibility audit for the county so that we ensure that all of our online services, our electronic services are accessible and that we're not missing anything. And then also that our buildings are accessible, that our services are accessible and our programs are accessible. Ensuring that our parks and our recreational activities are accessible to everyone regardless of what their situation might happen to be. And then focusing on ensuring that we support and continue to fund organizations that support our communities. There was legislation that changed how the county can be involved in mental health services, but it doesn't mean that we can't provide a safety net for other organizations to ensure that people are supported holistically.
Thank you, Latifah. So the next questions are gonna be for all of you, with regarding state legislatures. The legislature made changes to the region structures of ASOs and ADRCs. Additionally, Health and Human Resource, or HHS, came out with new maps and has put a current CICS into 4 different ASO regions. How do you see the structural change providing more service?
Well, they don't actually see it providing more services. The state has had several recent endeavors into privatization of public services. The most prominent is the Medicare Managed Care Organization. They were targeted to provide lower costs and better services, and they've not done that. They've cost Iowa more. They've provided less care for people. Their wait times are atrocious. It's in general a bad experience. We've recently started into private schools in lieu of public schools, and we've already had phenomenal growth in that area to the detriment of rural schools. And here we are with another version of injecting a private company in the middle of a public service. And I don't know when we're gonna learn that that doesn't provide more services for regular Iowans. Hopefully before this change gets too far down the road that we can't undo it. I just feel like at some point we need to realize that state government should be run by government employees and not by somebody whose profit motive stands in getting the most state dollars while providing the least amount of service. That's why I think it won't provide more things, especially when we take CICS and cut up one of the successful systems into 4 separate pieces and have it try in pieces like that.
Right, I have to agree with my colleague here that whoever thought that bringing in a company whose business, they're in the business of making a profit and asking them to run something is going to reduce the cost? Of course not. It's like when they privatized Medicaid and so many Iowans lost services and the wait list got longer and longer and the denial of services rose 891%. In other words, these companies are in the business of denying services so they can keep their costs low so they make more money off the backs of our people with disabilities. It is unconscionable that the state did this and now they want to do it in more areas. We need new legislation. We need legislators that will work for us, that will care about the people of Iowa, that will take care of each and every person, make sure that anybody with disabilities has service, make sure the homeless are housed, make sure the hungry are fed, before we start giving tax cuts to the wealthiest people among us.
And this one, I was reflecting when I read that one too, and one of the things that really stood out to me in my experience was when I sat in the College of Pharmacy building on the very first day. And one question they asked still stands out 20 years later, and that was, is addiction a disease? And I think at that time, that was something new. And so there are some things that I'd like to talk about that I am encouraged about in the conversation. Obviously, I wasn't in the legislature for this discussion. If I had, my focus would have been on listening and learning, first of all, from providers and patients who do things on the ground, and then working to ensure we have effective, efficient, and quality healthcare for everyone. And part of that is the concept of taking overlapping services and integrating them so you have one clear access point. Healthcare is really complicated, and I even have trouble helping my own family navigate the system. So as much as you can streamline that and make it easier for patients to navigate, I think is a positive. So that's one thing I'll be watching for should I be elected. The other piece is putting behavioral health, so putting mental health and substance abuse together, because there's a lot of comorbidities and a lot of patients need to access both of those services at the same time because they go together. So if you're sending them to one area for one service, one area for another service, one, it's hard on them to manage their own lives, it's hard on their caregivers to help them manage their own lives, and it's just disjointed. So bringing some of that together, I think, would be positive. I think, maintaining a lot of the local strengths would be one of my concerns, and I think that's something we're going to have to keep focused on. Also keep focused on outcomes as the primary focus of what we're trying to do. and ultimately working with closer to more providers on the ground. There's a lot of things that can be changed. One thing in particular, I as a pharmacist am able to help with long-acting injectables for antipsychotics. That helps keep people on their therapy to help prevent other issues that come when they get off their therapy, but we don't have a way to get reimbursed for doing that. So you have a huge system that's able to do it. You've got patients who can't access it. Continue to empower local providers to be innovative, like our amazing new YSS Ember facility is key. And then ultimately, the oversight role of the legislature is huge. If I'm successful, I'd love to serve on the HHS committee so I can do that.
My concerns with the new map is that folks are gonna have to go further for service. And then if the folks running it are being driven by profit margin, that's not gonna work out well for patients.
So I work in Medicaid with HHS, and I worked at the state fair, and I had a woman come up who was furious about this because she used to be able to drive just into her town and get services. Now with this new map, she has to travel 2 counties away to get them. Second, this doesn't make anything more efficient. I've dealt with the privatization of Medicaid, and they are out to make a profit. If you get approved for Medicaid, you get sent a letter. That letter has your state ID and what you've been approved for. If you want a card now, they've changed it. You have to call and ask for a card because they don't want to spend the postage to send you one. This does nothing. It's you're shuffling the deck, but you're not adding any cards. There's no more resources put here.
Well, I do echo what Mike and Penny said, but also, working in healthcare for many years, I had the opportunity to talk with coworkers, and the system just doesn't work. When we have mental health patients come into the emergency room, finding a bed for them is just time consuming. The staff has to start, the social worker, with the closest facility to see if they have availability. And it just spirals out into a circle, and it can reach out of state. So if they do not find a placement for that patient, then they have to begin again. And they have to keep doing that until they can find placement. The current system is not working. I don't know if this change will work. I do know that NAMI has registered with it, so I'm thinking that's you approved. Or, so, pardon? Also, yes, the Democrats did vote against the bill. The ones who voted against were nervous about the new model and giving some control over to the state. I think we need to have balance or checks and balances. Also, there was no additional money appropriated by the legislature for this actual service through the restructuring of the system. So they put forth the change, but they didn't give additional money for it.
Sometimes we need to step back from what's in front of us because the system and the people in the system get so ingrained in the politics of it all. 2012 was the first time Iowa's system was revamped. 2021 was the next time. 2026, the per capita amount of funding will be increased by a growth factor that's connected to sales tax. Who knows what that's going to mean. What I know is because of the behaviors that get associated with that system, not knowing whether it's addressing the needs or not. Republican Representative Fry, all he did was repeat the same phrase over again. When we talked about maps or services, it was a paraphrase. This is the budget figure I have to deal with. He said it multiple times this year, he said it multiple times last year and the years before. What if we looked at the whole system and said, what would it take to reimagine and invest in Iowans so there's not a missed opportunity that are managing their way through you know, disability, substance abuse, and not necessarily just what role would government take, what would it take to get that so that people are having those opportunities, that they're getting the services, families, people managing their way through disabilities, the workers who are, you know, not getting paid nearly enough to support themselves, to take it as a profession and invest in being there for folks long-term. If we could reimagine and break that cycle, then maybe here's the role for state government, here's the role for counties, here's the role for parents and service providers, and try and pull all of that together. We are stuck with, here's the pot of money, and just do something with it, regardless of whether it's something that's effective or not.
Okay, I'll do the second question, I'll start with you again. What do you see your role as being due to the changes in the region makeup to ensure needed services and supports are being provided focally and regionally?
So previously to the most recent changes, counties used to be able to contribute funds to support mental health services and disability services in our region, in our county. And with the changes now, county governments are not allowed to inject any funding into services that are provided. It all comes from the state. There's been a lot of confusion and concern about how involved county governments can be in the services being provided. I think one of the big roles that we can play as the county and supervisors is to stay involved in CICS, ensure that we have representation, if not at every single meeting, as many meetings as possible. If we can't serve on the board. Right now we have one of my coworkers is serving on the CICS board, which has really been fantastic for Story County and really for helping inform us of what's happening with all of the changes. But I think in addition to just ensuring that we stay informed and that we are sharing information that we're receiving from our communities, is that we are continuing to support other services, like I said before, making sure that we're focused on housing, affordable housing, accessible housing, transportation, accessible transportation. What does that look like? What do our residents need? Making sure that we're out in our communities and we're available to receive that information, that we're tapped in and tuned in to what the needs are in our communities. And if it's not providing mental health services, it's making sure that all the other needs that they do have, that we can help support, that we're involved in supporting.
Thank you. So this is for the rest of you now. Second question, on March 27th, 2024, Governor Reynolds signed HF 2612 into law. The law focused on changing Iowa's AEAs. The AEAs provide essential services to both special education, general education, media services, and support for families and children with disabilities and special needs from birth through age 27. While changes are not dramatic in the 2024-25 school year, the following year will impact a large number of infants, toddlers, and school-aged children with disabilities. How do you propose the AEA services that these families depend on will not be cut or alleviated altogether? How will services be provided to infants and toddlers?
This issue was actually one of the reasons that I am campaigning. The AEA bill, as it stands now, is a slap in the face to Iowans. Overwhelming amounts of people ask the state not to do this change, especially with the way it was originally written, because we did not take into account these exact services that you talked about. There is not a plan for providing those services. There is not a plan. We changed the law without a plan on how to serve the needs of some of Iowans' most needy people. A little baby that is born with special needs shouldn't have to scramble and beg the governor to try and get the plan put in place in order to save their life or make sure that they have quality of life. It was foolish and arrogant for the legislature to put this law through. So my plan for providing those services would be to admit the state's mistake and put the AEAs back together how they were. If we want to make changes to improve the services that the AEAs provided, we should do a real plan with actual people involved in the services, from both providers to those who receive care and people at the administrative level, and come up with an actual plan for improvement that doesn't involve cutting it out as just one more step to another silly privatization measure. That's my plan. Thank you.
Okay, I agree with Mike. Roll it back. This was a horrible bill, and they knew, we all thought it was horrible, and they did it anyway. So what we need to do is vote them out. Vote them all out. Again, these arrogant, I cannot say what's crossing my mind. These arrogant people who don't listen. We need legislators that let's listen to the service providers, let's listen to the parents, let's listen to the people who are receiving those services, and ask them, what can we do to make it better? We have 429 fewer AEA providers this year. They left the state. They said, oh no, this system's not working, I'm out of here. I have a friend who's a speech therapist. 31 years, I think, in Iowa as a speech therapist. And she says she now provides services 4 days a week, and she spends all Friday doing paperwork for this new system they put in place. That has not been an improvement, and you know, the quality of life of somebody who has a disability, the quality of the rest of their life, not just their current life, depends on them receiving early intervention and continuous services. They can grow and they can develop and they can become in so many ways, but they need the help, and they need it, you know yourself, when they're young. That's when you learn language the easiest, when you pick up so many things. Those kind of young brains, we need to help them out, and yeah, let's roll it back to what it was, see if we can hire some of those folks back and get a system that works for the people of Iowa.
I think one thing all of us in this room have in common is the belief that we need to serve our special needs students. I think that's one of the most important roles of our education system. And obviously there's a lot of concern about AEAs, which I fully understand. In addition to my own personal interest as a parent and a foster parent, I've also had many long conversations about AEAs over the last several months. And unfortunately, I wasn't in the house for the conversation. But had I been, my main concern would have been ensuring that the special education students are getting the best education possible at the core mission of the AEAs. I think that's ultimately a driving concern of mine. Having spoken with legislators last session about it, I know that their intent was to provide more flexibility and control to local decision makers who understand their school districts better. But that being said, I obviously wasn't able to be part of that debate and get to vote on the bill or weigh in on that. Had I been, I would have only supported any changes with assurances that it was going to improve outcomes for special education services and that no student would be left behind. As we know, the bill signed, it's passed, so I think there's a couple key roles going forward should I be elected. One is to provide that oversight. I think that's really important. Another piece is to listen and to learn. My leadership style is listening, learning, and then speaking and acting. So from that, I've gone out and I've spoken with 5 superintendents in my district to learn more about what they see on the ground. I think that will be important to take back to the legislature as there's discussion that continues to happen. You know, as a leader, I know there's more that I don't know than that I do know, and I need to know who my phone friends are in the district and develop those relationships. And one key example of that was just me as a young pharmacist with Representative Dio, who I'm hoping to try to fill his shoes. But he called me and said, hey, I have a bill about epilepsy and pharmacy on my desk. What can you tell me about it? And he called me in the district, and that really stood out as a key moment from my own leadership development. You need to not be afraid to ask people that know the issue intimately so that you can take that back and be an advocate for them. So that would be my intent going forward, should this continue to be a discussion as I expect it will next session.
When the AEAs were started by guys like Chuck Grassley, Bob Ray, they were started because of the inequity between the urban districts and the rural districts. And what's happened with these cuts in the AEAs is we're going right back there. the rural districts are being affected the most. They're being charged for services that they used to get, and a lot of these charges they can't afford. So we need to roll this back and make the urban and rural districts more equitable in the services that they're providing our students. The other thing I want to point out about AEAs, after the Perry shooting, the AEA staff, they were the first folks in the building, comforting students, comforting staff, and, you know, they aren't all there to show up. We have another tragedy, so, thank you.
I'm glad that Brett brought up ADO. He was one of the guys that signed off on this. Our county, our district was overwhelmingly against this, and he didn't listen to anyone, and he didn't care. He didn't return calls, he didn't speak to anybody, he didn't care. That's half the reason Mike is running up here. The AEAs are important for special education, but they're a heck of a lot more than that. My wife is a newborn hearing screener here at Mary Green. They do early hearing intervention for newborns. This is the map that it was. There are 3 places in western Iowa. Young Vista, Woodbury, I guess maybe you can count Cerro Gordo. Because of this, they can't go, the closest they can get is Polk. Polk, unless they go out of state.
Well, I did call our superintendent and talk to him a little bit about AEA and how it affects the schools. And it is a complex system, and there's a formula, and I don't know everything about it, but the money is a flow through, and the dollars, prior to changing it, the school districts would get the money. They would basically write a check to AEA for a consortium of services. So everything they needed was there. If they had a student that needed something different that they had not had before, you can call AEA, and within 24 hours, they had it fixed, ready for the student. There is the AEA has been turned into a fee for service, and that in the long term is going to be very expensive. It's privatized. You're contracting with a private company or person offering those services, and I don't believe that is going to be sustainable over the long term. Also, every year more money is going to be cut from the AEA. So I feel that it should be rolled back as well. And hopefully we can change the balance at the state level so that we can stop it from proceeding or going any further. I don't know how fixable or restorative it is, but I think I would like to see it stop sooner than later.
It's very fair to look at a system of services to determine where things can be improved. And a lot of times we can have efficiencies and we can improve service delivery with that input and asking questions. The overriding problem with the bill and law that came before the area education agencies is the governor made a decision before we even came to the legislature. Neither Republican or Democratic legislators knew the governor's going to do this. There were positions advertised at the State Department of Education before I had even seen a bill. That's a problem. And so, because that starts at the top and the way that happened, this is a circumstance where you have to ask any of us who are running, are we willing to take a look at the issue? What are we willing to do to have a high quality mental health system in the state that supports people with mental illness, as well as folks that are managing their way through a developmental disability. I mentioned, with the school district for 7 years, and worked in partnership with the education agencies. In this case, it was Grant Wood. And they provided a broad array of services. Yes, the services under special education, which are funded through the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, and funding is there from the state for that. I paid a lot of attention to work with a larger group of folks who had a disability, but it didn't rise to the level for that act. It was known as Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. A lot of other types of mental physical impairments where there's no federal funding for. And so the AEAs were critical in making sure that folks had that type of support for their kiddos and families.
Thank you for those answers. Now we'll open it up, we got time. We're gonna open up the questions from you guys. So if you have a question, and it's great to see all these young people here. I'm old, so it's good to see all these young people here. But if you've got a question for these people, they'd love to answer them, and it'd be great to hear what they have to say. So does anybody have a question?
Lisa Hedden. So my question, and to go for all of you, is there's a lot of partisanship and negativity in politics right now. How, if you are elected or re-elected, how do you see your role to temper the kind of anger and the negativity that's out there and really come together to look at providing the services that Iowans are expecting from our elected officials?
Can I take that one?
Actually, I'd like you all to respond, so go ahead.
Oh, I'll start then.
All right.
A lot of my supporters during my run, this was unexpected. I'm running as a Democrat, but I have a lot of Trump supporters, a good number of Trump supporters. People who have said they'd never vote for a Democrat. And part of that, the reason that I have their backing is because I'm not a politician. I don't want to be. I felt I had to because the people currently in place are bought and paid for. They have interests that are not middle-class Iowans. 86.6% of my funding comes from in my district. I haven't raised the most money, but it comes from in my district. The other 14%, I come from a military family, so it's from family out of state. I have a couple of coworkers in Ankeny. That has been the number one issue. They feel like politicians don't listen. I'm just gonna stick with my tribe because I know them. You gotta talk to people like they're regular people. And once you get over that fear of talking to somebody that has a different viewpoint, you'll find that they're pretty amenable.
I believe that how I behave reflects on others. Listening, I agree a lot of our representatives did not listen. I don't know what their agenda is, but it wasn't listening to the Iowans. I think you just have to be courteous, respectful, but not give up. Don't behave like them. Listen to people and speak for your constituents, and take that to your, GOP, your Republicans, and encourage them to work together.
For several of the controversial bills that came up, the school choice vouchers, the 40 bills that were impacting negatively members of the LGBTQ plus community, the immigration bills, so that state resources go towards, deporting individuals. With several of these, there was bipartisan opposition, but partisan support, and signed by the governor. So, the leader of our state sends a message, and the leader of our state sent a message 2 years ago when she primaried several members of her own party who had voted against her school voucher bill before. I have some great relationships with folks who are across the aisle. I'll name one, because he won't mind, if I name others, then they might get fired. Representative Losi, in Bondurant. We serve on a committee together, we have some great conversations, we support a lot of mental health services. I won't name any others, because I don't wanna get them in trouble, but, you know, at the end of the day, if there's, regardless of party or my own party, if I get primaried or voted out of office because of a personal value I have, as well as supporting something that my constituents, I believe they believe in, and I get voted out because of that, my life is pretty good. But I'm gonna try and support people and put people over politics. I'll continue to do that.
I'm gonna add one more thing. I am not bought and paid for. I mean, I will not accept PAC money. I know, several of us here do not, and I think that's important. You know, we are out here campaigning and just counting on the support from, the people in our districts, and that will not change.
Okay, in my career as a teacher, I never once asked a student whether their parents were Democrat or Republican. My 13 years as an EMT, I never asked a patient their political affiliation before I provided whatever assistance I could. All my years working as GIS coordinator for Boone County, my years on a NASA satellite project, none of those things, in any instance, did anyone I worked with or for, did I ask their political affiliation. My life I've spent in public service, and I would like to work for every single person in Iowa, every person in my district. My door is open when I'm elected. My door will be open, and you're all welcome to walk through, and I will do whatever I can for you. That's the kind of person I am. I'm, again, not a politician, no plans to be a politician. Pretty real over here. Oh, and I take no corporate PAC money either. Nobody owns me. I do not owe my vote to anybody. I owe my vote to the people of Iowa to do the best that I can for their future. And I'm willing to listen to anybody. I don't believe all good ideas originate with an R or a D behind them. So you have to take every bill at its face value and absolutely seek expert advice from anybody that will be impacted by that bill. You should get all the stakeholders together at the table before you even make up your mind. I can have a little preconceived bias, of course, because we're all human, but I can be swayed, but I cannot be bought.
I can go ahead. Thanks, Lisa, for that question. I think it's a really important one, and honestly, I think it's probably one of the most important ones right now. It's one of the things that bothers me the most about where we are as a culture. And I think a lot of it comes down to a couple things, and I've worked with groups like Better Angels and the Race Center. I think there are groups trying to move that needle, and a lot of it comes down to having respect and having civil conversations like we're having tonight. I think respecting other opinions, having that respect to have those conversations is important. But ultimately, I think you also have to model it, you know, and that's something I try really, really hard to do. I'm not gonna go on Facebook and trash people. I'm not gonna bully people. I'm not gonna lie about people. I've tried to run a positive campaign from day one, both in the primary and now. I think that's really important to set that example about what that looks like. And just those foundational beliefs, both my faith and also coming up in scouting. There's a lot of key words in there like courteous, kindness, cheerful, that I think really make a huge difference. And ultimately, it's being willing to work with people from the other party and across the other side. And you know, Representative Forbes is somebody in the legislature on the Democrat side that I've really respected. I've had a great relationship with him for a long time. There's a couple elected officials in this room who I've worked really hard to have a positive working relationship with at the local level. And I think building those personal relationships and friendships will go a long way, because it's really hard to go out there and trash somebody that you have that personal respect for.
There's a quote that I wish I knew the name of who did it, who said it, but there's just a poster on the wall at work, unattributed. A leader must spend time listening to the legitimate concerns of their people, or spend an inordinate amount of time managing unproductive behaviors. And I think that really speaks to me as someone who is a leader in my profession and is trying to be one for the state. We have to listen to people. Honestly, the only reason that I am up here tonight is that I was not listened to at the state level. I had concerns and they were not valued. And I feel like there's a lot of Iowans that are looking at their elected officials right now with that same sort of feeling. That there's a lot of anger about people who, express concerns about AEAs and were given back talking points that came from out of state rather than, oh, well, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought about that. Or I talked to these experts that are in Iowa that gave me an informed opinion. Instead it was, well, this is what we're gonna do, because this is what's on the bill that the governor brought us. And that came from an out-of-state company. That's why people are mad. And I think people have every right to be angry, every right to be upset, every right to feel unheard, and feel like it's politics and politicians, when it's not necessarily that. It's we put people in charge in our state that don't care about us, that don't feel like we're valued, that don't feel like they need to listen to us. That's not my style. If it was my style, I wouldn't be up here right now. We need to listen to our constituents and find the experts here. Thank you.
I'll just add a little bit, because we've been on this for a little while, but, to me, I think it's important that we recognize, all of the different forces that are working in our society right now, and are encouraging us to continue to find places that we're divided, to not listen to each other, to be afraid of each other, to be afraid of what we don't know about each other. And to me, I think we change that by each individual conversation that we have. We start from the places that we know we agree on. We all love our families. We all love our kids if we have them, and if not, we love our pets. We all care about safe drinking water. We all need a safe place to sleep. And if we start from those places where we agree, we may not agree on how we manage those issues, but if we start from the places that we agree, one at a time, we will make this better. Because I can't change the things that are happening in Des Moines. Okay, I'll stop. I can't change the things that are happening in Des Moines. Oh, good. I was like, wow, that was a fast minute. Yeah, I personally, I can't change the governor's major plan, and I can't change the fact that there's money coming from out of state, and there are forces way bigger than I know that are working to accomplish goals that I don't even want to think about. But what I can do is I can control every conversation I have with each and every person that I talk to. And if I'm afraid to talk to you because I think we're not going to agree on one or two subjects, I'm not going to make anything better. And I think we're all here to make things better for each other. And to me, that's the only way we're going to change things, is listening and finding the things that we agree on.
Just gotta look people in the eye and not be afraid.
I have more of a statement than a question. And so everything that the whole panel has shared just resonated with me on a deep level. I've been a servant as well for over 20 years and serving in our communities and that I've lived in, whether it be the northern region, the southern region, throughout the state. I've sat in conversations with Dr. Garcia as well as Marissa. And I also was in the rollout of 2012, 2021. I'm not convinced, as all of, it seems like the panel is in agreement with that, we're not convinced that this is the best move for our state. So with that being said, I just wanted to take an opportunity to kind of educate everyone in the room in regards to NAMI. So NAMI is a nationally known organization across the world, quite frankly. It's known nationwide, it's very reputable. What this does for NAMI is very concerning for various reasons, and one I want to share is is that this puts NAMI Central Iowa in 4 different districts if CICS does not become the ASO of the districts that I speak of. That is a huge concern. We just don't have the manpower to be able to manage all of that and work with 4 different ASOs, number one. The second piece of that really concerns me is that we, in my experience with the state, is they lay famous for saying that there's a duplication of service. That is one of my biggest concerns, is that is what they're going to say, because there are 14 affiliates throughout the state. And we are now all crossing over. And one of the biggest concerns that I have is that fundraising. It is written in our policy that we are not to go into other individual, those other affiliate districts and fundraise dollars. That is going to be exponentially, hazardous to us if that is, where we go and we end up split. I don't know what this looks like. I just actually had a meeting today with our state office. They don't know what that looks like. We won't know who the ASO is until December. Fiscal year is July 1. We all know time flies. And so I'm just really, really concerned, but I'm also extremely enlightened and just feel, I just want to hug all of you on this panel, because sometimes I think I'm getting inside of my own head, because I'm so passionate about mental health. I had lost my brother to suicide at 16 years old. Sorry. And I've had my own struggles, my children have struggles. I'm in this to make a difference. I'm in this to have an impact. And it just seems that all of you on this panel are in for the right reasons, and I love that. Because we don't see that very often. And so I just want to thank you, and I just want to thank everyone for listening to me tonight and hearing me. And if you want to know any more about NAMI Central Iowa and be educated on a much deeper level, I would love to talk about more members on the panel, as well as anybody in the room. My door is also open. I'm very busy, as all of y'all are, but I will do my best at the time. Whoever wants to be educated a little bit more. Thank you.
So we're gonna take one more question. Go ahead.
I'm Dr. Linda Lynn from Iowa State. I teach a special ed course, which most of these people in the room are from. If you could tell them one reason to vote for you, what would it be?
I think one reason that I would expect people to be able to vote for me is a willingness and ability to admit that I don't know the answers to things. That a willingness to seek the answers from the experts in the room, a willingness to find the right course that does the best for the most Iowans, with the sense of humility that it takes to realize that I don't always know the answer. That it's my job to find the best answer for the state, and to recognize that Iowa has a wealth of knowledge within our borders. There are so many people here that I can rely on, and I am not too proud to ask for help.
I would say one reason to vote for me is because I really truly care about people, about their lives, their successes, their disappointments, their problems, and what can I do for you?
And I would say one thing for me is having the depth and breadth of experience to be able to fight for things and make a difference. And a couple key pieces of that is, one, I talk about listening and learning. But then it comes down to getting the right people around the table to build a team. You need the right skill set at your table, and then you need to be persistent and tenacious enough to see those things through. And so that's what I bring to all of my areas in my background, and what I think would make me a good legislator.
I think my strength comes from my journalism background. I'm not afraid to ask hard questions, and I have a pretty good idea who to ask.
I think a good reason to vote for me is I'm just a regular person. I'm a middle-class guy who has struggled for a lot of years now. I'm not a polished politician. I haven't gone through the ordinary steps, but I think that's more than half of what's wrong, is regular people don't have the voice.
I have been in healthcare service, I think, all my life. I'm honest. I can admit I made a mistake. and I feel my experiences, as a nurse, has getting the stakeholders, everybody in there that you need before you make a decision. And if you don't get the answer you want, then you keep reaching out to find what you need for the solution. So,
I would say my experience, but not in the way that you would think, both state and local elected office, but more my experience and training as a social worker, working with people in the environments that they work in, help them look at justice issues and rights across all of these systems that touch all of our lives. But bottom line, even if you don't vote for me, but I think I'm the only one unopposed up here, I would still like to have your vote. I don't think I get you in trouble with your status by asking for that. But please vote. One vote can make a difference. It's hard, and here's as big as we get our arms around it, and what you see on TV stuff. When I was a mayor in Iowa City in 2006, about 2007, there's a town called Hills, just south of Iowa City. Their mayor vote came to a tie. There was no provision in their city charter on how to break a tie. They drew the name out of a coffee can. So if you care about reproductive freedom, if you care about education, if you care about jobs, if you care about people whose culture and backgrounds are different than your own, do you want it to come down to drawing a name out of a coffee can? I don't think you do. Please vote. Please vote.
I'm also unopposed, but I also hope that you vote. I would say vote for me because I come to work every day to serve you. That's why I come to work every day to serve the people of Story County and to make our communities, our lives better, safer, healthier. And I'm so happy to see you guys here. I don't know if you're here for credit, I don't care. It's just so nice to see all of you here. And I hope you all walk away with at least like one little thing that you carry with you past election day. And I would like to invite you all to come to any of our board meetings. They're absolutely fascinating. And they're also on YouTube, so if you want to see it, get a flavor before you come, do that too. But we'd love to have you, and we'd love to show you around and teach you a little bit more about what happens on the county level.
So I just want to add something. When I was in college, I played at a small college, played football and baseball, and I was a worrier. I didn't think I had any problems. I was a worrier. 2021, I didn't want to be here anymore. I fell apart. And I didn't realize what depression was, because it's embarrassing. I used to, Roxanne and I talked to people about this. I golfed with the doctor. I couldn't tell him I was struggling. I couldn't go in the pharmacy and get medication because they're gonna talk about me. And you young people, we all put that face on, don't we, that we're okay. We're smiling, nothing's wrong in our lives. And you find out that that's not true. And what I found is, as afraid as I was to talk about what I went through and that I didn't want to be here anymore, and I shouldn't be here right now, but I am. And I just think we need to be willing to open up and just talk about the crap that's going on in our lives. It isn't, you guys, don't pretend your lives are perfect. Find that one person that you can call at 1 o'clock in the morning when you're having a tough night that you can talk to. And you guys gotta help us make sure that the mental health thing doesn't go away. I joined NAMI when I went through my stuff, and Dr. Stotts, I'm on medication now, and I see her, and I'm not scared anymore. But I think the biggest thing is we're all scared to let someone think that we're not all together, and we aren't all together. So, at 62 years old, I don't want to be here anymore, and I realized that there's a reason, and I should have gotten help a long time before, but I didn't. So don't wait too long, and just make sure that you guys help us that are that are having problems, that are struggling. So thanks for coming.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, how do I end to that? No, that was so fabulous, like, this is, I've never had a forum so full of warm fuzzies, since everyone knows I'm all about warm fuzzies, so this is awesome. Roxanne with NAMI, I'm Tricia with ARC of Story County. The ARC is the advocacy-based group for people with intellectual disabilities. NAMI is the advocacy-based group for people with mental health issues. So thank you all for coming here.